Hey, welcome in to Carp's Corner as we sit here and take a look at the divisional round of the playoffs. Take a look back at some of the things that happened at the wild card and some of the new developments that have happened since early on in the week. We got some college football news as well, some coaching developments. I mean, nothing too crazy has really happened on that front yet. So, not a whole lot to really share there. And I don't think anything's too crazy is ultimately going to happen until a lot of you at least get to the AFC and NFC championship round, as you have to think there's a number of coaches that could be pulled from teams that are going to potentially be there. You look at Buffalo, you look at Tampa, you look at Kansas City. I mean, there's coaches being interviewed off all of these staffs, and so it'll be interesting to kind of see how that shakes out and where it goes. But I don't see a lot of these hirings fully happening until then, unless there's someone who's available right now who's not currently coaching on a team. And maybe there's even a college coach out there that, some of these NFL owners are coveting. So we'll get to that and see who potentially that could be as we move on as well. I wanted to start with this though. And I'm going to sit here and stump for this for a long time, because when there's something that I'm passionate about, I'm going to go hard for it. And I'm going to make sure that everybody knows it. And it's something I believe to be true in my heart. And as we sit here and talk about Hall of Fame and nominations and semifinalists and finalists and trying to sway public perception, I believe the 50 voting members to see if they'll maybe get on the team. I talked about this before, but Zach Thomas, 14-year NFL career, played 10, 12 seasons with the Dolphins, one season with Dallas, briefly with Kansas City in training camp. Was fortunate enough to play with Zach for 1 year. I grew up watching Zach. He was the guy that I admired. I always wanted to kind of model my game after, even though we were completely different body types. I had an immense amount of respect for the guy because of what he was able to do and the fact that he wasn't the biggest dude out there doing it. And he played with a rawness, a passion, an intensity. He played on a lot of great teams, never made a Super Bowl. A lot of those teams were great offensive teams, that he was a part of it early on. And then it transitioned to the defensive side of the ball over there with Jason Taylor, playing really, really high level football. And I always look back, like my criteria for the Hall of Fame. I look at guys who I played with who are Hall of Famers. DeMarcus Ware is up. He's getting in. DeMarcus Ware was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL for a number of years. Probably he's in the conversation for 7-8 years. And then he was able to play, a bunch, 4 or 5 more on top of that and accumulate a lot. Won a Super Bowl ultimately in Denver, not in Dallas, much to the chagrin of many Cowboys fans. And then also myself and some of his teammates would have liked to have got that done for him. But DeMarcus, an all-time great dude, played the run, played the pass, could do it all. He's getting in. He's getting in. For me, you have to be considered and in the conversation 4 to 6, maybe 7 years. 4 is on the low end, but being the best player at your position for that period of time. I mean, there's guys who we talk about as being compilers who play 13, 14 years, and that's great. I have no problem with that. And they have great stats, and that's all well and good. But at any point in their career, when you looked at it, did you actually look and say, this guy is one of the best players? You can get an argument about it. I'm not saying it's going to be cut hard and fast, but could you make the argument, hey, this guy, he's one of the best players at his position? And when you see that in the NFL, it's reflected in AP, the All-Pro team. Zach Thomas, 5-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro. So you have to tell yourself, for at least those 7 years, he's in the conversation for being the best middle linebacker in football. It's the better part of a decade. He's an unbelievable player. I believe he was on the NFL 90s team. Like he's fantastic. He did it all. You look at his stats, they line up very comparably to Brian Urlacher's. And I believe he even has one more first-team All-Pro appearance. He's a teammate of mine. He's a great dude. I absolutely love him as a man. But outside of that, because the Hall of Fame isn't for nice guys. It's not for guys who are great husbands, humanitarians, all those things. He's all that. He checks all those boxes. The Hall of Fame is for guys who are great on the field. Zach Thomas was great on the field. For nearly a decade, you would put him in the conversation as being one of the best middle linebackers in football. And to me, that is worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. And so hopefully this year, we'll get to hear his name called as one of the finalists and get him ultimately inducted. I'm excited for it. I'd love to see it because I know you go back and watch the film today. The dude was a force in the middle. And he doesn't have this big domineering presence. He didn't have the physical gifts or traits of a Brian Urlacher or a Ray Lewis, but the production was all there. And the elite play and elite performance was all there. Zach Thomas should be a Hall of Famer. And I'm going to keep stumping for him the entire time. Now, on to some other stuff. But I'm going to make sure I get that in there all the time because I want to make sure that he is always getting his just due until he wears that gold jacket. I'm going to do my best to try to help get him in there because I know he's very deserving. But on that, we got the divisional round of the playoffs. We've got a little college football news to start off with. Stetson Bennett coming back, going to be back at Georgia this year. What does that mean for the Bulldogs? Their national championship quarterback reprising his role, coming back. Is he even the starter? That's the thing that Kirby Smart will have to ask himself. Yeah, JT Daniels waiting in the wings. They said this year with the team that they had, Stetson Bennett gave him the best opportunity to win a national championship. And ultimately he did. Is that the same thing next year? Next year, that defense is losing a lot. Are they able to kind of revamp and become a little bit more of a passing attack? They'll be a little healthier at receiver. Are they going to be able to utilize JT Daniels? Do they even bring somebody potentially out of the portal? Is there still movement and jockeying around? Caleb Williams is still out there. People said in Georgia they're trying to get him. How much is it going to cost with his NIL deal and everything? Who knows? But Stetson Bennett coming back, I think it's a great story, but I don't know if you could even definitively say that he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs. And what a crazy story that would be, that a guy chooses to come back after winning a national championship and really being a great player in that game. Stetson Bennett, I don't think all time you're going to say is a great player, but in that game, he played great. And I think that was very, very important. And they needed him to do that to ultimately win. Probably would have been better for him to just ride off into the sunset and just be the king of Georgia, do whatever he wanted in Athens and Atlanta. I mean, that guy would have had free reign. Go sell insurance. Dude, you'll go make $500,000 a year selling insurance and playing golf with people and talking about that Good Morning America interview. He had a great story, but he's coming back. We'll see if he ultimately becomes a starter. Honestly, I'd say it's 50-50 that he does. Probably a good chance he starts opening day. Wouldn't stun me, though, if by the end of the season someone else is in there. We'll see what happens, what Kirby Smart elects ultimately to do. Some other news as we transition from college into the NFL. Talking about Jim Harbaugh. Michigan's reportedly put out there on the table a great deal for him. He's apparently kind of agreed to it tacitly, like all the terms have been met. Does he ultimately come back? There's a belief that, he wants that Raiders job. Some people will say he'll take any NFL job he can get if he believes it's one that he can win at. Now, I don't know if he'd take that Jacksonville job as long as Trent Baalke's there. And I think he would probably love to go out there and upstage Urban Meyer, who, apparently looks like he couldn't get it done in Jacksonville. I think Jim Harbaugh would love nothing more than to maybe take that, but he's not doing Trent Baalke given their relationship in San Francisco. I ultimately think Mark Davis is probably really wanting to hire him for the Raiders. And the problem is they have Rich Bisaccia, who has done a fantastic job governing that. Heck, they were a fourth down away from getting it done. But Jim Harbaugh, I would say, and I've talked to other people about this, 50-50 that he maybe returns to Michigan. Wouldn't shock me if he doesn't come back, but 50-50 that he returns to Michigan. So, I know if you're a Wolverines fan out there, probably hurts because you're wondering who the heck can you get. The guy finally just got it done, checked all the boxes, and he's going to be a hot topic until all of those NFL jobs are filled. Remember this, Jim Harbaugh is going to be someone that people are looking at and talking about potentially leaving Michigan. And I appreciate him being honest with recruits, saying, hey, the NFL is something that I would consider. Maybe not now, maybe not, at this moment, have to be the right situation. But I think it would be disingenuous to say anything else. And I appreciate his honesty. But there's a lot of smoke, and I know the Raiders like to hire Raider guys. And so until that job is locked up, I think there's a decent shot that Jim Harbaugh ultimately lands there. And so We'll have to monitor that closely here over the next couple weeks, see how many people they end up interviewing. Mike Mayock's out at GM, who they could potentially pair in there, with that. Or is this a situation where Jim Harbaugh might want to run the whole show? Does he want to run the whole show? Who knows? We'll see how all that looks. NFL and COVID testing. Finally figuring this out. Realizing that, hey, 90% of the league or so is vaccinated. What are we going to test players for? To ruin our playoff product? Do you really want to do that if you're the NFL? So finally, the NFL and the NFLPA got smart and said, hey, we're going to test vaccinated players. We're not even going to test unvaccinated players now. Omicron's everywhere. People are getting it. Infection rates may be up. Fatality rates are mostly down across the board. People are getting it. Moving on, the vaccinated and unvaccinated alike. So what are we going to do? Risk ruining our product? To risk Pat Mahomes not playing this week and Joe Burrow not being out there. Derrick Henry comes back. Everyone's waiting to see him. What if he popped a positive test? Heaven forbid something happened with Tom Brady. Now all the green juice and everything he drinks and his lifestyle, I know we joke about Aaron Rodgers and his, immunized. I mean, Tom Brady, even he may have so much health and antibodies and everything. I don't even know if he's capable of getting it, but no one wants to see one of these divisional round matchups, which are great, by the way. No one wants to see any of these things derailed for COVID. So the NFL, this was their statement. They said they're not going to test players regularly unless they're symptomatic. Like, well, what does regular testing mean? If you're symptomatic, you get a test. I wouldn't define that as regular. I would define that as targeted testing based upon guys who are showing symptoms. So we'll see how that goes. But I wouldn't be stunned if there are no players in the playoffs. There haven't been yet. And if there aren't for the rest of the time, regardless of how prevalent COVID becomes, if there aren't any players that test positive from now until after the Super Bowl. Wouldn't shock me one bit. NFL finally gets it right. You know why? Because they care about their product and the quality, and ultimately leads them to care about the dollar. And they want to make sure Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, Stan Kroenke, all these guys, they want to make sure they're pulling in and scooping as much cash in as they ultimately can. And the playoffs demonstrate that product. They're up 10% in viewing year over year. And all these TV deals are coming up. Don't think for a second they want to try to kill the golden goose and throw some trash out there on the field with a third team quarterback and guys who are pulling off the street because they don't have enough players healthy due to contact tracing and quarantine periods. NFL, they don't care about that. They're putting the product on the field. And I would suggest that the rest of the leagues go and do that as well. Make sure it gets done. You even heard LeBron James bring up comments about it. So you know that they're trying to get it done. Just other leagues, follow the NFL's lead. They've got the market cornered on publicity and dominating the TV and media landscape 365 days a year. So no more COVID testing for the NFL unless you have symptoms, which heck, it wouldn't even stun me unless guys really have temperatures and are feeling really bad. I don't think they're testing you if you have the sniffles. Now, some tough news out of the NFL, and we'll follow this up with a good story, but some tough news out of the NFL. Malik Mcdowell, Michigan State defensive tackle, drafted to the Seahawks with the Browns, had a pretty good year, played some good ball on a one-year deal for him. He's arrested down in Florida. And here's the thing about this story. Malik McDowell's had legal troubles before. He hurt his back, I believe, riding ATV or something in the offseason, never really materialized in Seattle. He's had problems throughout his career. And I think that there is something psychologically that he probably needs to seek help and seek treatment for. And I hope that that happens. I really do. But that still doesn't absolve the fact that this is one heck of a funny story. And I just want you to visualize and think about what you're seeing here. And as I read this story coming out, how he's arrested for walking what they thought was a school, it was like a children's learning center in Florida. He's walking by, and all the articles and the police reports, it said he was arrested for resisting arrest, assaulting a police officer, and public exposure. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, did it happen in that order? Did he resist arrest, assault a police officer, and then expose himself? Or was the reason the police were there because of the last charge, the exposure first? And so then you begin to think about this and you start putting it in context of how this could potentially look, where you have a guy who's 6'4", 6'5", huge dude, 290 pounds, 300 pounds, walking butt ass naked down the street. And police are called. They go up there and the cop's like, hey, what's going on? Put some clothes on, keeps walking. And I don't know if he was on, substances or what, or having, some sort of mental psychological episode, whatever it is. If you're walking around naked, obviously during broad daylight, there's something going on. Cop asks you to put your clothes on. You don't. Charges at him, closed fist. I'm going to tell you this. No one wants to get in a fight with a naked dude. No one. Police officers, especially guys, would get in arguments in practice. And I always say this about the NFL. It's great. College even too. You get in arguments with your brothers out there on the field. Things go back and forth. They get heated. Very rarely do they make it to the locker room. Occasionally they do. Sometimes they make it from the locker room into the shower. And guys will start yelling at each other, this and that, and they'll say something off the cuff and someone won't like it. I've watched dudes in towels try to throw down, and usually the other guy and other people around bro, you ain't getting in a naked fight. No dudes want to be getting in naked fights. That poor police officer with Malik McDowell, he got a naked fight. And he also suffered some pretty significant injuries. Hopefully he's okay. But watching the video of that at the end where they arrested him and you see a dude, his size and strength on the concrete, face down, handcuffed, and then the next question is, well, how do you get him in the police car? Who's helping him stand up? I mean, I'm not trying to be all over a balmy, sweaty, 300-pound dude to help get him in the back. And so what they did, they flip him over, throw him on a gurney, and throw a sheet over him. I mean, it's an entertaining sight to see. Is there something wrong with Malik McDowell? Yeah, he needs to seek help. But I can't get the image out of my head of a police officer. I mean, I don't know if they have body cam footage of what, but I mean, it'd be mildly entertaining to watch a grown man fully naked charging at a cop in broad daylight. Maybe it's just me. I find it funny. I find it humorous. And maybe it's just a function of when guys start trying to get in fights in the locker room and talk about naked fights and how weird that potentially gets. One more great story before we start to get to this awesome slate of NFL games. Zach Taylor, Cincinnati Bengals coach, breaks the 31-year curse. Probably now in line for coach of the year. There's a lot of guys you give it to. Mike Vrabel, you look at what he was able to do. You look at LaFleur, 3 years, 13-3, getting it done, especially with all the stuff that happened in the offseason with Green Bay. But you have to probably end up giving it to Zach Taylor. It's Mike Tomlin got the Steelers to the playoffs. You look at John Harbaugh with what he had to deal with, nursing his team along. I mean, there's some great stuff. There's a lot of, look up at Buffalo, McDermott. I mean, there's a lot of great coaches. We're breaking the 31-year playoff drought. Zach Taylor gets it, riding the coattails of Joe Burrow. What does he do to ultimately ingratiate himself into the community even more? Zach Taylor gives game balls to the fans. Where do you go to find the fans? You go to the bars. And Zach Taylor went around to the bars in Cincinnati passing out game balls. Dude, if that's not a tip of the cap, and he took some players with him. I don't know who the players were. I didn't see them listed. But you're going to get the head coach of an NFL team giving game balls to fans with players walking around in bars. It's absolutely tremendous. I can't think of a better story, off the top of my head, something that it would allow you to connect to the fans even more. And the thing is, Cincinnati fans, they're passionate about their team. They're always not all that happy though about the ownership of Mike Brown and some of the things that go on. Most people probably think he held on to Marvin Lewis too long. Doesn't usually spend a lot of money in free agency. Their facilities aren't great. There's all these different things. But he did spend money this offseason. He hung on to Zach Taylor when people said he was probably on the hot seat, and it paid dividends. Drafted Jamar Chase when a lot of people, including this guy, said they should draft Penei Sewell, and it all worked out. And now you go try to get those fans back, get the playoff win at home in the jungle, everybody loaded up there, juiced up, ready to go. Zach Taylor in the bars, in the Queen City, going out passing out game balls. That's awesome. I got a couple of them behind me. My game balls are prized. I mean, individual stuff, ones we got when we won the division, all these different things. Man, they're great. It's fantastic. kudos to Zach Taylor. Great job, sir. Great idea. I don't know if it was yours. Even if it wasn't, I'm going to give it to you. You own it, sir. Now, let's break down these games. Starting on Saturday, Cincinnati at the Tennessee Titans. Titans minus 3.5. It's going to be tight. Going to be a tight one. I'm inclined to take the points. I think Tennessee wins this game, but Derrick Henry, he's not coming back just to stand on the sideline. Broken foot, healed up, looked moving good in the practice film that I saw him going through ladders. I understand that's not taking hits. That's not running full speed, but his cutting ability looked good. Didn't look to be favoring it. It wouldn't put him out there if he couldn't do it. But Ryan Tannehill's played really good football as well, but he's going to have to go out-duel Joe Burrow. And it's going to be tough. It wouldn't shock me if Cincinnati won this game. In fact, this is the game I'm torn about probably as much as anything because of how well Cincinnati played last week and what their receivers can do. If they get Joe Mixon going. The only thing I worry about a little bit is Cincinnati. Larry Ogunjobi hurt his ankle. He's done. They were down potentially 3 defensive tackles at the end of that game. Could be getting some of them back, but the defensive line is not a place you want to be weak when you're playing the Tennessee Titans. So that is the concern. And then can Cincinnati's offensive line hold up? That's the other piece. Joe Burrow sacked a ton this year. If you keep him healthy and upright, it could be an upset. I'm going to take the points in it, but I think seems like a 3-point game to me, like 30-27, 27-24. Joe Burrow, if he gets the ball last, he might be able to pull that thing out. I think Tennessee can ultimately salt it away with the Derrick Henry running game. San Francisco, Green Bay, rematch from a couple years ago in the NFC Championship. Green Bay -6. It's a big number. Aaron Rodgers, though, on his stinking revenge tour, I don't think he is going to let anybody get him this year. My goodness, he was playing some really good football. And I know his yards aren't that of Tom Brady and some of the other things like maybe don't match up. You go watch the film of him this year. He was phenomenal. He gave him a week to heal that toe up. Now you're worried that break their rhythm. I think with the guys experienced as him, his offense will be playing great. They should be getting guys on defense back and healthy. They've given him the running game. This is what's different than the last time they played San Francisco. They have the big physical running game with A.J. Dillon. That is going to be a huge piece and a huge asset to them and what they're able to do and how they're going to be able to operate. And so having A.J. Dillon out there to be able to pound the football, take some of that heat off of Aaron Rodgers, big time. Aaron Jones, also the fire and ice, the lightning and thunder running attack between those two guys, going to be a huge asset for him to be able to help get it done. So I love what they're able to do. And this is a healthy Green Bay offensive line for the most part. San Francisco beat them up before because they were able to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He didn't have time to be able to get it. Tampa Bay did the same thing to him to a certain extent last year. This Green Bay defense has been playing pretty decent, and Aaron Rodgers has been having time. And if he has time, he'll carve you up, and it won't even be close. He's going to be able to get it done. Last 2 NFC championships, this time it's going to be different. I think Aaron Rodgers moves on to his 3rd NFC championship in as many years. And Jimmy G, I love the guy. You look at what he did. When they lost the Super Bowl against Kansas City. He's overthrows Emmanuel Sanders by about 1.5 yards. You look at what he did last week. He gets bailed out against Dallas. He let one sail over Ayuk, and it was incompletion on a 3rd down. Then he lets one sail scrambling out. It's an interception. And so just at inopportune times, balls float on him a little bit, or he underthrows someone. Maybe he comes up clutch. He's good enough to get you here. He might even be good enough to get you to the next round. But I don't know if this team has enough. Nick Bosa is going to play, and so that'll ultimately help. He's a wrecking machine. But I think this Green Bay offense with the running game and how good their O-line is, they should be able to slow down that vaunted San Francisco front. 6 points is a lot. I'm going to lay the points. I think they get this thing by a touchdown. But another close game, I think another good one. Unless Aaron Rodgers proves me wrong and it's blowout city. Los Angeles Rams, Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa Bay -3. Stafford versus Brady. You'll love the big quarterback matchup. We have a ton of big quarterback matchups, but this is one of the premier ones. You got to love the Stafford and Odell Beckham Jr. combination. Sean McVay has been doing a great job getting them on the same page, getting it dialed up together so they're able to go out there and have success. You saw it last week. You saw it at the end of the regular season. It's hitting. You throw Cooper Kupp in there, who was an ultimate and excellent decoy. Now you got a running attack that's out there. And that's the big things. You saw how they were able to rush the football on Monday night against the Cards. It was impressive. And if you can get a running game going like that, Stafford, he'll carve you up. He'll carve you up off that play action. You see what he can finally do. And it's something that his teammates have known forever. Matt Stafford is one heck of a quarterback. And if he has weapons around him and doesn't just have to carry the team and has a quality offensive coordinator, he's pretty darn good. And we saw that. Now he's going against Tom Brady. Tristan Wirfs, tackle, battling injuries. We'll see if he's going to be able to play. Tom needs to be protected. He's the least mobile quarterback, obviously in the playoffs. He's an older dude. He's never been able to move. He has great pocket presence, but you look at Von Miller and Aaron Donald, like these dudes wreck games. They wreck games. And without Godwin, without Antonio Brown, you're going to be looking at Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Gronk, Leonard Fournette in the hamstring. We'll see if he's able to go, and if he does, his level of effectiveness, how he's going to be on the field. If it will be, playoff Lenny from last year, if he'll reemerge. I just don't see it happening. I would love to be able to see Tampa Bay. I feel like Tampa Bay and Green Bay would make a phenomenal NFC championship. It's going to be tough. Tampa -3. I don't ever like going against Tom Brady. I feel like it's a fool's errand. It's like picking against Nick Saban. But Nick Saban did lose this year. It's in Tampa. I've been kicking this thing around. And my goodness, it's a tough one. It is a tough one. I worry about this with the Rams. You look at the front, with Shaq Barrett, JPP, Vita Vea, and Ndamukong Suh. I mean, they got studs up front that can get after you. And Todd Bowles can scheme it up. He can dial it up. I think Matt Stafford gets a second playoff win. I can't believe I just said that. I think he beats Tom Brady. I'm gonna take the points. I think it's a close game. I don't feel great about this. This is another super tight game. But I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm rolling my boy Matty Stafford. I play with both him and Tom, but I think this might be Stafford's time. And if Odell Beckham Jr. plays like that and they can get the pass rush on Tom Brady, this will be a tough one for him. Because if you can get pressure up front without blitzing, that's what's impacted Tom. And it really impacts every quarterback. But one as good as Tom, that's really the only way to really, really get after him and impact him, because he'll chew you up in the blitz. Buffalo, Kansas City, Chiefs -1.5. It feels like Buffalo should be the favorite in this game based upon how they played against New England Patriots. I've never seen anyone do that to Bill Belichick, especially in the playoffs. Kansas City took care of the business with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was able to get pressure, though. And that's just, can this Buffalo Bills defense pressure Pat Mahomes? They don't have TJ Watt up there, but can they get pressure against Pat Mahomes? Josh Allen is playing as good as anybody in the playoffs this year, regardless of position. He was on fire. He's running the ball. He's scrambling to buy time, throwing it down the field with accuracy, throwing it from the pocket with accuracy. Stephon Diggs has been playing great. They have the running game going with Singletary. They get the running game going with Allen. Like they're going to be tough. I know it's a road game, and I know it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And Kansas City's offense is starting to click. And the big thing, they're getting, Mahomes going. He's connecting with Kelsey. They're doing some good things. Defensively, they're beginning to step up. I mean, they smothered the Steelers, but my goodness, the Steelers don't have much. I look at a little more like what Joe Burrow was able to do to them. If Joe Burrow can, find a way to get a victory, I know it was in Cincinnati. This one's going to be in Kansas City, not Buffalo. I think Josh Allen can pull this thing out. I think the Bills a little bit of team of destiny. They're riding high with confidence. They slayed the Patriots dragon, someone that they've been dealing with all year, all decade, the last 2 decades. They slayed them. If you can get Singletary running the ball and Josh Allen play like he has, Buffalo Bills get this thing done. They will be in the AFC Championship. I'm going to take those points. It's only 1.5. It's not a huge number. I think that's going to be the best game. And I'm glad that is going to be the Sunday afternoon affair. These 4 games all look really good on paper. I don't think there's going to be one that is going to be a blowout by any stretch. So it should be a great weekend of football. And Andy Reid, by the way, talk about what his motivation is. Won a Super Bowl, Andy. What keeps you going? Well, Super Bowl, it's like eating a piece of chocolate cake. You eat one, you're going to want to eat 2. And that's going to keep you driven. So, I mean, Andy Reid, he's looking at this like it's a piece of chocolate cake. That does scare me a little bit because Andy Reid looks like a guy that can put away some chocolate cake. But that's it for this edition of Carp's Corner. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.